managing serverless deployments with Knative and Jenkins X. So let me introduce our next speaker. Here we go. There we go. Victor. How are you, Victor?
Hey, always good. Excellent.
Excellent. Viktor Farcic?
Farcic or Farcic, depending on whether you want simple or a complicated version.
Okay, go on. Give me the complicated.
Farcic. But then we have half an hour discussion how you think that you're pronouncing it correctly, and I'd say no.
And whereabouts are you calling in today from, Victor?
Huh?
Whereabouts are you calling in from today?
Barcelona.
Barcelona? Oh, lovely. Nice.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know whether it's lovely. I haven't been out of my apartment for a long time, so
I was just about to
probably.
say it's part of the world, but yeah, it's kind of like we're all indoors right now, right? So
exactly.
Victor, principal software delivery strategist and developer at CloudBees.
Yes.
Docker captain, many different accolades we can use there. Big author, DevOps toolkit series, DevOps paradox, test-driven Java development as well. So it's an absolute pleasure to have you on today, Victor. Thank you very much for supporting all the talks. What are we going to talk about today then, Victor?
Serverless deployments with Knative and automating all that through Jenkins X.
Sounds amazing. So it sounds like there's a lot of good buzzwords there, but also sounds like it's very, very useful and a lot of fun.
I need to give you a warning that I just realized that it's a 25-minute session and I have material for 45 minutes, so it's going to be double speed.
Just ignore the vowels. Only say the consonants and it will be bang on time. Victor, without further ado, I'll leave it up to you.
Okay, so as you already heard, we're going to talk about serverless deployments. I will show you a few examples using Knative, and we are going to let Jenkins X automate all those. I will not be actually talking about Jenkins X today. It will just run in the background and do the things that I wanted to do. So I'm going to skip the introduction because you already heard from the guy whose name I forgot stuff, right? So that's boring, and I don't have enough time. I will skip the part of creating the cluster. I did that in advance. I kept them in the slides just in case somebody wants to repeat what I did. So let's get to it immediately, right? So what we're doing with Jenkins X to begin with is that from the very beginning, we are really committed to make it as serverless as possible in terms that it just scales up and down and you don't need to worry much about resources and it will use what it needs, but not more, and all the good things, right? But that's not the subject. What the subject is, if we can do something similar for our applications, for your applications, right? Can we make your application serverless? Now, the obvious answer is yes. I mean, it's 2020. We know that we can make it serverless, but let's see one of the ways how we can do that, right? So let's go back in the history just very quickly, right? Long time ago, right? When I was a small boy, we were deploying our applications directly to servers, right? And in the meantime, we got cloud computing, and now we understand the things that we have something called VMs, virtual machines, and we can create them, destroy them. We are creating images, so they're immutable. We are doing all the good things that you already know that we are doing, right? In the meantime, we got container schedulers. That's a relatively new thing, 5 years, give or take, right? That changed drastically. Actually didn't really introduce new concepts, but made some new concepts easier to use, old concepts easier to use, right? And now where we are moving is into serverless world. Now, I must say here, we're not really, I don't think that we will ever be kind of serverless fully. No, that's very hard, but there are very good use cases where that makes sense. And another disclaimer I need to make is that even though there is a word functions there, I will not be really treating serverless as functions. What I'm thinking about right now, or talking about, is serverless in terms that it can be really anything, and it's more about me not really thinking much about how it will scale, whether it will scale, where it will run, and all the good things that we don't like to do because we like to be focused on whatever brings value, right? The business logic of our applications. So within the serverless computing world, we have different options. Now, Many of those are really vendor specific, like you can choose AWS Lambda or Azure Functions or this and that. But I personally don't think that that's a great idea, because that's a way for you to be locked into a certain provider. And if there is anything that we learn from Kubernetes is that portability and ability to have a single API that is free and available to everybody and works everywhere is a great thing, right? So here, I do believe that we are moving towards a world where we are less dependent on certain provider and we can move things around, right? I could be today in Azure, tomorrow in Google, day after that in AWS. I mean, maybe not within a day, right? But that's at least the idea. Idea is not to be really locked into something proprietary, at least unless it provides a significant added value. Now, the alternative to that, to go to a cloud vendor and have some proprietary stuff, is to run serverless on your own infrastructure. But that kind of defines purpose. You can do that. There are frameworks for that. But if you're going to manage that infrastructure, somebody needs to manage that infrastructure. And that's actually one of the pain points that we are trying to remove. At least in my head, we are trying to remove it. Serverless. And also functions, which I already mentioned, are kind of limiting. At least in my head, defining everything as a function, especially in a very, very complex system, might not be that good of an idea. And I do like the idea of functions. It's nice to write like 20 lines of something and say, this is my function, do something. But that's all. Then also kind of you realize that has certain limitations, and systems are rarely that simple. And it might not be the best idea to have hundreds of thousands of functions instead of one application. That introduces its own limitations or problems that we might be facing. So I think that where we are moving right now, not for everybody, of course, but part of us are moving is to the idea that, yes, we are already accepted that everybody is or will be using Kubernetes. I assume that that's a given today, right? There is not much discussion. It's just a question whether you're already there or you will be going there soon, because it's too big for us to ignore it these days. So if you're already going to use Kubernetes, then it probably makes sense. And we're going to spend effort in maintaining our clusters. And we are going to have to do that one way or another. So why not then run serverless applications or applications that behave as serverless inside of Kubernetes? And the obvious reason, what I mentioned already, is because you are going to have Kubernetes, or you already have it. So there is no real significant overhead in managing your infrastructure. It is the de facto standard, right? Probably there is no bigger standard today in industry or de facto standard than Kubernetes. And you're not really locked into any vendor. You're free to choose whatever you want. And you know that that something will work no matter whether you're hosting it here or there, whether it's on-prem or Azure or AWS or DigitalOcean, Google, whatever it is, right? So it's a very attractive option, at least from my perspective, if those things matter to you. And then that poses natural questions. If we are going to run some form of serverless workloads in Kubernetes, what can they be? Which types of applications fit the story? Now, short answer is that if we can make containers behave like serverless applications, then basically anything that can be packaged in a container image and run as a container can potentially be a serverless application managed as a serverless something. Now, reality, even though everything that is a container can be treated as serverless one way or another, of course, there is that thing about speed, right? It's better if it's fast than if it's slow. So if it boots within milliseconds or a second, right? That's decently fast that you can say, yeah, that's a good candidate. Now, if you have something huge that takes 15 minutes to boot, then that's probably not a good option for you. I mean, probably not that you have no good option whatsoever, but that's a separate story, right? Stateless works great. I've been running stateful applications as serverless, but that's probably not the best fit because of quite a few problems. But if it's stateless, that's almost a no-brainer, given some other conditions are in place. And the case where that I believe that serverless are with no-brainer is what we call preview environments, meaning that you are creating pull requests and you're deploying those pull requests somewhere, and those deployments are waiting for somebody to review them, and it can be 1 hour or 5 minutes or 5 days, right? So in many environments, your applications are not doing anything. Even if your production is not a good use case for serverless, everything else is almost certainly is, because everywhere else, your applications are more often idle than used by somebody. So let's skip these slides. I already spoke more than I'm used to speak without touching my terminal. This is just a silly diagram that doesn't matter. Let's go down straight to the terminal and see how all that looks like. So what I did before, before I started this session, I created this YAML definition, which, if you never use Kubernetes, might sound like too much, but trust me, this is kind of probably the smallest YAML definition that defines everything that you will ever need. But that's really not that important. I will not bother you with YAML. The only thing that I will say that basically all that came to me for free. No, that's not what I wanted. All that came to me for free because when I created a new project with Jenkins X, it already has all the definitions and everything I need. All I really did is went to this values file and I ignore all this. This is all not important. Doesn't matter. What does matter, if I find it, is that I just changed this flag, this parameter from Knative deployed, which is by default false, to true, and all of a sudden my applications are serverless, right? And I will demonstrate that in a second. So if we do kubectl-n jake staging, this is the namespace where my apps are running. And if I list all the pods in that namespace, now if my demo fails right away, that's going to be embarrassing. So right now, you can see, you need to trust me that this is the only namespace that matters. And if you look at what I'm running in that namespace from pod perspective, because pods are really the only physical entities doing something, is that I'm not running anything. So basically, I have nothing, no physical entity of any form or way running over there, right? You see it, no resources found. And now to demonstrate how that works, really, what I'm going to do is execute this command, which will run a container with Siege. Now, I don't know how many of you are familiar with Siege, but think of Siege as poor man's or a simple way to do some simple type of performance testing, right? So what I will be doing is I will be sending 300 concurrent requests during 20 seconds, right? So during 20 seconds, I will be bumping my application that does not exist right now because you saw nothing is running with requests, 300 requests all the time in parallel during 20 seconds. And then I'm going to output all the pods in that namespace, and we're going to see what we're going to get. So now you're going to have to watch me in silence or watch a screen where nothing is happening for approximately 20 seconds, 30 seconds, right? I need to figure out what to talk about while there is nothing on my screen. And I have no...
Do you want a game of rock, paper, scissors?
Yeah, too late.
Oh, too late. I probably would have won. So
too late. Okay, so what you can see here is that I sent 7,759 requests during those 20 seconds, right? It's not a huge amount, but I'm not running Google size here. So decent amount of traffic during 20 seconds. 100% of those requests were responded, right? So I did not lose a single request, even though nothing was running before I started hitting my cluster. And what Knative did is it detected that I'm sending some requests. It queued those requests through an API gateway, which can be many different combinations, many different options we can choose. And then it decided to spin up some number of pods. And it decided in this case that it needs, what is this number? 5 pods. You can see it at the bottom. It created 5 pods simply because it calculated that 5 pods are probably the best number of pods given certain conditions to handle this amount of requests, right? If I sent more requests, I would have more pods. If I sent less, I would have less. But basically, it scaled my application to 5 replicas to handle the load that appeared out of nowhere. Now, if I do repeat the get pods command from before, remember that like 2 minutes passed, it already scale down to one replica, because while I was talking to you, nothing was happening, and it realized that probably it's not a good idea to run 5 pods anymore. So let's scale it to less and less and less. And then it reached 1, just in case. Maybe somebody starts using my application and it wants to keep it hot. And then after a while, and you can see by the status, it decided that it should terminate the last one of the replicas because simply nobody is using the application anymore. And if you repeat this command now, nothing is running again, right? So I have very, very optimum usage of resources because I am more or less using what I need and not using what I don't need, right? It's a very, very optimum usage of resources at a very, very low cost. So I'm not sure whether I'm going to have time to do this, but what I am going to, where am I now? What I'm going to do is that I'm going to change the source code of my application. I'm going to, what the heck happened there? Let's see. I wanted to create a new, what's going on here? Okay, I'm pushing a change to my application just so that I want to show you how all that combines with creating a pull request. So I push some change to my application. This is all GitOps based. I will not really use anything special here except Git. I'm going to create a pull request. I'm doing it through a terminal because I don't like clicking buttons. And then Jenkins X in the background is going to process that request, and it will do whatever it needs to do. And we're going to, if I have time, we're going to see the results of that very, very soon. Approximately maybe 1 minute or something. Let me track the progress. PR1, I think. So we're going to do, what are we going to do? Let's see whether it's running. Okay, so it's processing my pull request. It is going to build a new release of my application. It's going to test it. It's going to do all the good stuff. And after a couple of minutes, I will have a pull request. And that pull request will result in a new deployment in a special environment, special namespace that is dedicated to pull request. And all it really did is push something to Git. And now we need to wait a bit. Okay, rock, paper, scissors again. Now is your opportunity. No? Okay.
Let's do it.
There we go.
Oh no, I've lost you. Oh, look at that. It's all gone wrong.
No worries. Now I need to wait. Let me see whether anything is deployed. Still not deployed. It will be deployed in a minute or two, something like that. If anybody has a question while we're waiting for a few more steps, I can answer them. If not, I'm going to have my energy drink before I fall asleep. Come on.
Nothing just yet, but we could do a quick rock, paper, scissors. I feel this is coming. We should do online rock, paper, scissors. Ready?
There we go. There I am.
Okay, ready? 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
1, 2, 3.
Okay. Now I know why I'm losing against my dog all the time. Okay, so where are we? Yes, it's coming. Okay, let's say this. Let's skip this. You need to trust me that my application will be deployed. Not trust involved. It is almost finished. It is almost there. It's funny how, if I was doing 5 years ago, I would say, if it's finished in an hour, it would be great. I get impatient if it takes a minute. Let me see whether my application is running. Yeah, there you go. My application is coming back up, and I can send a request to my newly deployed application, running it serverless. You can see that I modified the output of my application to say Knative before it was saying hello world example or something like that. And now my application is deployed as a pull request. And the cool thing about that is that in a minute or two or something like that, it will disappear completely. and I will not really need to waste my CPU and memory and all the good things that I don't want to waste because I'm cheap and I want to save money to my company and all those things because I have all my environments running as, in this case, Knative. And I can have thousands of pull requests deployed in parallel and making everybody productive, being able to review the pull request and run some tests and do whatever you need to do, whenever you need to do, without really spending more memory and CPU and paying more money to Google, Amazon, Azure, whatever I want, whichever is the company I'm using and that is ripping me off by charging me too much money on resources. And you can see that pull request was deployed. It was running a minute ago. Now it is terminating. Now it is scaling down to 0 replicas, and it will be gone until the next time I choose to use. And I can demonstrate that actually relatively quickly. If I go back to my GitHub account, and if I go to the pull request that I deployed, here it is. It's all Git-based. It is here available in preview environment, and I can now send a request to it, and it will still work as if, even though it doesn't exist. There you go, 0 pods. I send a request. It takes a second because it needs to load for the first time. Come on. And my application is responding. It is back live. It disappeared. It appeared again, and all the good things that you like. That's about it. I actually spoke faster than I hoped that I would speak. I will merge my pull request, confirm merge. It will be deployed to staging soon because it's fully automated, and I will live happily ever after. Few graphs. I put the graphs because I know that people get depressed if they see the terminal, but they are really not anything important, just pretty colors. You know, I can explain it as if I'm a systems architect. There is a green box and there is a red box, and then there is something happening in yellow boxes. But what really matters is that the system is scaling up and down and doing the right thing as you would expect it to do. Where was I? Boring. And that's about it of my talk. I tried to be fast. I hope that I was fast. I have now 5 minutes for questions. Thank you very much. Go to my blog, listen to the podcasts, buy the book and more books, expense them to your manager, and that's about it. Let's see the questions.
What would your preferred book? What suggested book would you pick for kind of like Knative perhaps or Jenkins X learning for people who haven't used it before?
Is that a trick question or? No,
there's no trick questions here. They're all
okay. So for Jenkins X, I would definitely recommend the book that I wrote. That's the easy one. That's why I said, is it a trick question? Kind of. You're leading me towards self-marketing. For Knative, I don't think that there is any book available, at least not that I know. It's a relatively new project. I mean, maybe for a year and a half or something like that. So I don't think that anybody had courage to write it yet. And Jenkins X, as I said, there's the link.
And in terms of Jenkins X adoption, how have you seen it at CloudBees in terms of the rate of adoption of Jenkins X versus Jenkins or other Jenkins X like CI servers? So
compared to Jenkins X or anything else in that area will not reach Jenkins adoption anytime soon, simply because Jenkins is there for 15 years. I don't know, 70% approximately of the market is using it and all those things. So nobody will reach Jenkins adoption anytime soon. And Jenkins X specifically, which by the way has nothing to do with Jenkins except the name, has a much smaller scope, right? Jenkins does everything you might need it to do, while Jenkins is focused on Kubernetes, very opinionated, GitOps based. You need to accept certain processes and so on and so forth. So if this is Jenkins scope, this kind of Jenkins X scope like this, right? But it does it well. And we're really kind of surprised by the level of adoption. It's skyrocketing, a lot of people using it, and it goes well. Try it.
Another question, can Jenkins X be used without GitHub, or can it be used with GitHub Enterprise?
Yes, it can be used with GitHub, GitHub Enterprise, GitLab, Bitbucket, ignoring a few tiny problems, and with Git, right? Initially, it couldn't because you use Prow, which is only GitHub based, but in the meantime, we replaced Prow with something similar called Lighthouse, and now it can use almost any Git. I haven't tried it with Gary, some weird stuff, but all the major Git distributions are supported.
Awesome. No other questions in at the moment. Here we go. Okay. So Nacho's here. Oh, is this Nacho from Barcelona as well, from the Barcelona Jug meeting?
Oh, Nacho. If that's the Nacho, hi Nacho.
So Nacho asks, what are the bad parts about Knative? So Victor, you need to now you go from, this is like the good cop, bad cop, but you need to absolutely slam Knative now, right?
Yeah.
So what are the problems? Are there performance issues, memory consumption issues, that kind of thing?
I think that, the major problem is that it might not be the most stable thing you can ever use, for the simple fact that it exists for a relatively short period of time. I could actually argue that actually everything Kubernetes is not stable, kind of like it did not exist for a sufficient period of time. There are some weird bugs happening every once in a while, so it's not really as I said, not the most stable thing you can use. Now, on the other hand, I do believe that Knative is probably one of the best, if not the best options if you're looking for something like that for Kubernetes. And more importantly to me than, good things, bad things, is that in Kubernetes, the things are changing basically on week by week basis. And we are all trying to evaluate not only what is better, what is worse, but what is most likely going to survive. To be honest, I'm getting sick of kind of like using something for a year and then it doesn't exist anymore. And just like Istio is most likely going to be, and Linkerd are the service meshes, right, in the future, no matter whether they're better or not than alternatives. That's what I believe for Knative, because the level of commitment we see from different companies for Knative is much higher, at least from my perspective, than to others. So it's most likely going to be the thing. But nobody knows. Kind of like it's like betting on horses. Kind of like you're making a bet in Kubernetes, whatever you do, whether it will exist next year or not.
Yeah. And that was Nacho, by the way, from Barcelona. So big high five and shout out.
Nacho, yeah, there you go. See you in JBC and Conf and all that stuff.
Oh yeah, fingers crossed. PBC, which got a couple of minutes left as well. So if there's any other questions, do feel free to ping out. PBC asks, actually a similar kind of question. Jenkins X is interesting, but is it stable or production ready?
The honest answer is that some combinations are more production ready than others. So what was happening is that, when we started with Jenkins X, we wanted to experiment a lot. That was the goal, and to churn new features and to figure out what is really the right fit of all the things we want. And in the meantime, we think that we found that kind of like what it really is, and started working on stabilizing Jenkins X. But since it is impossible to stabilize something that works on any single combination that anybody can imagine, in Kubernetes, some are working better than others. So, for example, we are pretty confident that it's production ready on GKE, on EKS. Very, very soon, we're going to stamp AKS. Now, on-prem is a bit trickier situation because it really depends on what you have, right? Kind of, is it OpenShift, which is basically has its own stuff there that is kind of different, or is it something else? What type of storage you have and things like that. So I would say that for GKE, EKS, AKS, that's I'm going to sign with blood. That's relatively stable. Production ready. The rest depends, really. What we are doing right now is working with a lot of companies to really nail it down. So if you're interested, contact me. I'm now what you didn't read at the beginning because it happened a few days ago. Now I'm product manager for Jenkins X. If you want to try it, ring me, ping me. I will help you out.
Cool. And the best way to ping you is on what, Twitter?
Twitter, email, Slack, Kubernetes Slack channel.
Your contact details are on the back of your book, yeah? So buy the book and then the Twitter.
Google me. Send the carrier pigeon. That will work as well. You'll find me. You'll find me. I'm not worried about that.
Pleasure, Victor. So I'll give you one more chance to win a game of rock, paper, scissors.
There you go.
We're going to go to a break, okay? But Victor, don't go paper, all right? Because if you go paper, I'll beat you, all right?
Okay.
3, 1, 2, 3. I told you not to go paper, Victor.
Yeah,
I gave you the answer then, Victor.
Did you really expect that I would follow your advice?
Well,
that was a trick, probably.
Yeah,
you knew that I would never listen to you.
Victor, thank you very much. It's been a privilege.
Cheers.